Along the journey of the popular jazz genre music, some celebrated names over the years stick out. And when one of those names happens to be connected to motherland, it's an instant attraction. We're of course talking about the incomparable, acclaimed vocalist and songwriter, Somi. Born in Illinois to immigrants from Rwanda and Uganda, the 2021 Grammy Award Nominee for Best Jazz Vocal Album for her latest album, Holy Room, and 2019 NAACP Image Award for Outstanding Jazz Album.
And you can hear it in my accent when I talk.
Somi meets IGIHE for a deep dive into her life and career.
Felt wonderful. I mean, I think more than anything, it's a humbling experience. It kind of is an affirmation of the journey. And it was just a bright spot to have after such a challenging year. You know, in the midst of a pandemic, to have something to really celebrate has really been a blessing. And so, yeah, it's been joyful, and it's been, you know, an opportunity to reflect and be thankful.
Ginger me with pillow talking pretty things. Ginger me by candlelight. Love walks by the
I would say I've been a professional vocalist and songwriter. I don't even know how many years has it been now. I don't know, but I probably about. I moved to New York. I'd probably say about my first record came out in 2003. So I was still totally finding my voice and figuring out what I wanted to say. So I would say, you know, it's been about 18 years that I've been on the journey intentionally to be an artist and to be a professional singer. But I don't think I was still, like, as I said, I was still figuring out what it is I wanted to say, how I wanted to say it, and what my voice really was. In terms of, as a writer though, I think I've always identified as a writer since I was a young girl. That's always just been a part of how I release and deal with emotions and, you know, process the world around me. Since I was very small, I would always write poetry or tell stories, you know. So, and that's just evolving. As you said, now I'm doing playwriting, so now it's just sort of evolving, and
I can't hold these burdens anymore. Your love feels like a holy room. Wash my feet, leave them at the door.
Holy Room, it's been wonderful. I mean, I recorded that. It's a live album, as you probably know. I recorded it in May of 2019. It was just a concert, you know, not just a concert, but it was a concert in my tour schedule, you know, and I had no idea at the time that I would release it as a recording. I had no idea that it would grant me the opportunities that I've had so far this year. I mean, it's really been magical, and there's like, so much bounty has come out of it and continues to come out of it, and I'm just so grateful. I wrote an email this morning actually to the band, the big band there, the orchestra, just thanking them, because every time I get yet another opportunity through that music and that night, you know, I'm really humbled, and I'm just grateful to them for the invitation, and yeah, so it's been a wonderful journey.
Light a candle and let it burn. Feels like a holy room. Let the angels sing.
Jazz is sort of a room that I appeared in accidentally. I didn't set out to be a jazz singer, and in many ways, I'm not the traditional jazz singer. I'm not somebody who sings what we call jazz standards. You know, I'm a songwriter, so jazz is a part of the way the music that I write. I'm deeply influenced by the jazz idiom and the kind of in that form of expression. But I think the reason that I'm so drawn to jazz, and the reason that I connect so much with that community, because, you know, for all intents and purposes in the States, yes, I'm known as a jazz vocalist, or just anywhere I'm known as a jazz vocalist. But I think really what jazz means to me is a certain type of freedom, right? It's the one genre that demands improvisation on stage. It demands explicitly, and not to say that other genres don't improvise and don't have a sense of freedom, but explicitly the history, the legacy of jazz is rooted in improvisation, right? And I think as an African woman who was raised mostly in the States, who's had this very global, hyphenated, in-between kind of social experience, cultural experience, you have to improvise. You have to be a malleable human being in different contexts, whether that's socially, culturally, politically. So I think that jazz, I always think of it as a wonderful metaphor for the life journey that I've been fortunate to experience. Well, I think the interviews you must be speaking of are specifically related to a studio album I released in 2018 called Petite Freak, which really was honoring a long-standing African immigrant community, predominantly West African, predominantly Francophone, predominantly Muslim, in Harlem, New York City. I live in Harlem, or I've been living in Harlem for many years, and being in a historic neighborhood such as, I would argue that outside of the African continent, I would argue that Harlem is one of the most celebrated spaces, cities, or not cities, neighborhoods of African culture, or Black culture, right? Global Black culture. And there's something that is happening in Harlem right now. There's a process of gentrification where a lot of these communities are being displaced. A lot of the Black people who are there are being displaced, a large part of whom are African immigrants who've been there, as I said, for over 4 decades. And I think myself as a child of immigrants from Rwanda and Uganda, I think for me, I can't take that. I'd never take the sacrifice of an immigrant for granted. I never take the sacrifice that those people made in service most of the time to their families, right? Everything they left behind and everything they worked to build. And to see that community disrupted was, and continues to be, I think, troubling, right? So really that record, Petite Freak, was about that they refer to this African quarter in Harlem as Petite Freak, Little Africa. And it was really just an homage to the dignity of immigrants, to the dignity of African immigrants in particular, and to kind of acknowledge how they are negotiating, having their home disrupted another time, right? And really just honoring the work ethic and the beauty of the immigrant experience in the United States. I always feel really fortunate to have the opportunity to tour on the African continent because for the most part, the creative economy, the cultural economy that's really kind of established for touring musicians is mostly in the United States and in the West, let's say in the West, right? That's where I have most of my opportunities to have a regular touring schedule with my band. I think it's really an exciting time for the music industry here in Africa. I think that for the first time, the global cultural stage is really beginning to pay attention in a real way, in a serious way, understanding, to be honest, the money that is actually here, the audience that is here, the stories, the stories that we have yet to really hear.
Throw your voice to the back of the room to greet the spirits who have guided you here to this place, protected you for this place. Shake out any nerves before you greet the center of the first song.
I've recently begun writing plays, or let me say making theater. I've recently ventured into theater making, and I've always loved the theater. I've always loved going, and I think what I love about the theater is this kind of multidimensional way of seeing a story, one story. For that stretch of time, you're stepping into a world, right? And I would say that my last few records, they've been sort of written as song cycles where you're stepping into a world, whether that's in Harlem or in Lagos. And I think what I'm interested in, how do you create more dimension beyond just one song or beyond a group of songs, but how do you invite into the audience's imagination a sense of characters and travel. And I recently wrote a play about the great Miriam Makeba, a South African singer and activist, whom I'm deeply, I have great admiration for and has influenced me in many ways. I've been developing that play for the last 5 years. It was actually just about to open 5 days before the opening night. COVID, happened. But I'm looking forward to the day we reopen the theaters. We're now in the process of talking about, we have dates on the calendar for the fall and into the next year that we're excited about bringing that play back to life on its feet and touring, and I can't wait to share that. Yeah. What I would say to young African women is, to listen to their heart and to know that anything is possible. I often reflect on the fact that I've had a lot of privilege just because of where I grew up, just because of the fact that I had an opportunity to be outside, and I had all kinds of examples of people doing all kinds of non-traditional career paths or life choices, right? And so I often wonder, would I have the courage had I been born and raised in East Africa? Would I have had the courage, because would I have had the role models, to say, yeah, you can be a singer, yeah, you can be an artist, yeah, you can be a writer, you can make these choices that are non-traditional but are valid. So I would say I think my message is really just that your dreams are valid, and that there's always space. And if it seems as though that the space hasn't been made yet, then you can make the space for yourself. Well, I have a community of artist friends and creators here in Kigali who I do always try to remain in conversation with and just be aware of what are the needs, what are the things they're working on. There are so many people doing extraordinary work, whether it's in theater or music or just arts education. And I definitely want to contribute more. I think in this particular moment, I'm using this time honestly to kind of just become more aware of where the gaps are, where the vacuums are, where the opportunity is. Where can I be most helpful? Whether it's just being more in conversation with young artists and making sure that they know that I'm here to offer any advice in whatever way, or larger kind of vision ideas. I have a dream of being able to produce certain things here, a huge jazz festival, things like that. But also just really be a part of elevating arts education, not just in the hope of everybody becoming an artist, because I don't think that's what it is. I think the beauty of arts education is it encourages abstract thinking, out of the box thinking from a very young age, which means that whatever path they choose, whether it's as an artist or an engineer or a school teacher or a doctor, they're always going to have that, they're going to start with the foundation of thinking more expansively. I think that's the beauty of the arts. It opens ourselves, our minds and our hearts in a really beautiful way. And so that's also really important to me. So again, I just hope to be of service in whatever way that I can.